welcome to February reviews. Every month I sort of wrap up the month with everything I've consumed, books, movies, TV show, songs, whatever, and I talk about what I liked and what I didn't like. And I've just remembered something. Alright, the weather is ridiculous. The last week it's been like basically summer. It's so warm and sunny, and I put this on today because I'm going to see Mean Girls tonight and it's a Wednesday, so you know, the one pink item of clothing I have needs to get used when it can be. And I went outside and I was sweltering, and now inside I'm even more warm. I did open a window for a bit, but I've just closed it to film, and I'm so warm now. So I will be switching out my tops. I mean, we're going tonight, so I'll be able to wear this tonight because it'll be cooler, because it's just the sun that makes it warm. But I will not be wearing this the rest of the day, I can assure you. Let's talk about my February favourites. I still call it that because that's what it used to be, but I actually think there's not going to be much on here that I didn't enjoy this month. But let's have a look. I didn't have any movies? I can't believe that. Did I not see any movies this month? Let me check my 1 second a day. Well, there's nothing there, so I guess no movies this month. So in TV shows, I've got two. Number one is Shameless, whatever the last season is. I'm finally on the last season. It has taken me years. I don't love this show, but I feel like I just need to finish it. It's not a bad show, and this last season is set during COVID, and at the beginning I was like, it's a bit on the nose. Like, they're saying everything. It's almost like they were filming it at the time with the expectation that people didn't know what COVID was or what the regulations were. Like, it feels like it's almost a historical piece because they're being so obvious about things. But it is interesting because it's one of very few pieces of media I've seen that sort of talk about COVID and don't just skip that year, or those years, I suppose. And like, I enjoy the political sort of stances, I guess, it takes, and the way it sort of talks about politics. Or the way, no, it doesn't talk, but I would say, like, I don't know what the right word is. It's interesting, but I still don't love it, and I'm very much ready to finish it. I still haven't, because I just really slowly pick at it, but we're almost there. And then the second one also wasn't a huge hit, but it was a new one, and it was the X-Men series from, I think it was the 90s, or I don't know when. And I've discovered recently, I've only realised this really recently, even though I'm sure it's been a thing for a long time, I'm not a huge fan of animation. And I don't know how I realised this, but I knew that I didn't really want to watch this. We have to watch it because it's part of the Marvel stuff, but I was like putting it off for as long as possible, and even now we've only watched, I think, maybe 4 episodes. And I was thinking about it, I was like, why am I not in, like, I like the X-Men movies and stuff and the characters, so why am I so against watching this series? And in part it is because it's quite a commitment, there's a lot of episodes, but in part I just think I don't love animation. I like Disney, obviously, but I think aside from that, it's just not a form of media that I necessarily take to. Anyway, on to books. We've got 5, which is wonderful. I read the last Noughts and Crosses book. Actually not the last, but I read the series in January, and then I read the 5th book, which is called Crossfire by Mallory Blackman, in February. And it turns out it's not the last book. There is a 6th book, but it is very hard to find in the libraries. So I'm gonna have to look a bit harder, I think. Now, this book was okay. I think I mentioned in January that I didn't love the writing style or the stories necessarily. Like, I don't know, I wasn't connecting with it. But what I really didn't like, again, it was okay, I enjoyed it, it was fine. But what I really didn't like about this one was that the ending wasn't even remotely an ending. It just like stopped what felt like it was. I thought there was something wrong with the audiobook I was listening to. It was so unfinished, and I don't like books that do that. Which is interesting because actually I had 2 of those books this month, but we'll talk about the second one in a moment. First, I read The Dinner Party by Nina Manning. This was an ARC, I believe, which means it was an advanced reader's copy that I got in exchange for giving an honest review. And it was easy to read, which I enjoyed because I don't always find reading easy. And this was an ebook, which I find even less easy usually, so I did appreciate that. But I thought it was quite slow. And like, it took a really long time to get into the mystery of it, I felt. And then the mystery itself, A, was obvious to me anyway, and B, wasn't like worth waiting half the book to find out what the mystery would be. And then, you know, the end of the book to actually discover what it is. And I didn't like the characters at all. The main characters, there were 2 main characters, well, there's a few main characters, but the main couple that it focuses on are so unlikable, and I can't relate to them, and I can't empathize with either of them. And it was just a frustrating read, to be honest. It didn't scratch the itch that I hoped it would. And the third one was also an ARC, which was Countdown by Johan Otterson. And already when I picked this was an audiobook, I was a bit worried because I could see it was the first of a trilogy, and obviously if it's the first that's being offered as an advanced reader's copy, the second and third aren't going to be out yet or even anywhere near ready to read. And this book was alright, but a bit hard to follow with the audio, and I think I would have enjoyed it way more if it was a physical book. They did give the option for the ebook. As I say, I don't like reading ebooks, but I feel like having a physical copy of this book would be a really good reading experience actually. But this was the second book where we just had an unfinished ending, and I wasn't too pleased with that. It was just like, so, I don't know. It was less awkward than the first one, but it was still like, oh, there's not another chapter or anything to sort of round this out. And usually when you know that books are part of a series or a trilogy or whatever, usually the books still have their own ending and then find a way to sort of get tied into the next books. But this one didn't, and I wasn't thrilled with it. Not doing very well on the books front, are we? The fourth book I read was called Murder on the Dance Floor by Shirley Ballas, and there is a sequel to this, which I'm hoping to read at some point once it becomes available as an audiobook. I mean, I have it reserved in my library app, so hopefully it won't be too long. And this was good overall. Again, I didn't feel like there was a mystery, obviously, because it's a murder. I wasn't sold on it, like I wasn't gripped into it, but it was like, again, a really easy read, which I definitely needed after Countdown. Easy to follow, easy to sort of differentiate the characters, know what was going on, nice to see a bit about like the dance world. So I did enjoy it, but it just wasn't wow, blow me away amazing. And then finally, an actual physical copy book, not just that, also a Dutch one, Wie niet weg is wordt gezien by Ida Vos. Now if you look at the picture, you may be able to tell when it's set, at least. It's set in the Second World War, and I thought this was non-fiction, but it turns out it is fiction, but it's very much based on the author's own experiences. It's just not, I don't know, she obviously maybe took enough liberties for it to be considered fiction. I don't know. This is a Dutch book, so a lot of you won't be able to read it, but I do think there is an English translation as well. I can't remember what it's called, maybe Hide and Seek or something. It told me on Storygraph, but I forgot. And this book was gorgeous. This book, maybe gorgeous isn't actually the right word, but it was very interesting. Basically, this girl is a kid when the war breaks out, a Jewish kid, and in Holland, and it's basically just her experience of the war, and you know, it goes through sort of the 30s into the 40s, and so it talks about like each law slowly being introduced that give the Jews less rights. And then, you know, at some point she has to go away to a different school because Jews are no longer allowed to go to regular schools. And then at some point, you know, it becomes really strict and she needs to go, and I don't know what the English word for it is. The Dutch word is onderduik, and it basically means when Jews hid like under a different name with a different like Christian family and sort of went through the war like that. I don't know what the right word is. In hiding, maybe? And it's her experience of going into hiding and with her sister as well. And it's so interesting because I know this happened. I have family members who went into hiding during the war and they've spoken to me about it. You know, it's not something that they keep secret. But there are just so many things you don't think about until, you know, you read a book like this, or unless, you know, your family members actually tell you these bits. I don't want to spoil anything. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I don't want to spoil anything. But there's a couple of moments, especially towards the end of the book and sort of as the war is coming to an end, that are just things I never really considered. I think I vaguely knew about them, but just didn't fully consider. And I've sort of written out a list of questions for certain family members who did go into hiding and their experience and if they can relate to these things, because it's just very interesting and awful, obviously. And also, like, what's so interesting is some of the earlier chapters where, you know, the Jew hatred is there, but it's not like legally enforced or whatever yet. It feels so like it could happen now, and like that's wild. We're like not even 80 years removed from the war, and it just feels like anti-Semitism is just as rife. So yeah, this book left me with a lot of thoughts and feelings, and yeah, I'm just very glad I read it. The one thing I really didn't like about it was that it's written in the third person, fine, but whenever they're talking about a situation, about the main character has a name, we know her name is Rachel, but they never say, like, Rachel did so-and-so, they always say she, and the reason that's annoying is because there were many times where I had to go back and make sure which she they were talking about, because it wouldn't just be about Rachel. She has a mum, she has a sister, she's got aunts, she's got like friends. And so it would say something like, quote, "Put the butter away, said mum. She put the butter away," something like that. And then you're trying to work out, did the mum put the butter away or was it Rachel? And there were just like many occasions throughout the book where I had to sort of go back a line and figure out which she was she. But aside from that, really good book. Really, really, really good book. I forgot we have to do the rest of the favourites. I was very ready to like finish it up there. All right, on to plays. I've got two. Number one, I went to see Much Ado About Nothing in London with Tom Hiddleston, Hayley Atwell, and a wonderful rest of the cast. I knew nothing about this show going in. I knew it was a Shakespeare and that was it. I didn't even know it was a comedy. You walk in and already you just think, this is not what I would imagine a Shakespeare play to like give off. Because there's like blaring party music, there's like flashing lights, the ushers are dancing, like it's absolutely wild. And the stage is covered in this pink glitter. It's just, what? And the show started. And first and foremost, I just want to give kudos to the director and the actors, because I understood every line in that play, and that's quite something to achieve with a Shakespeare. But I can't tell you how hard I was laughing for basically the entirety of it. Like, there were some more serious and sad moments, but there were some moments where my stomach hurt from laughing so much. It was brilliant. I really highly recommend going. I mean, we were quite lucky to get cheap tickets. It's expensive, so, you know, if you can't, it's not the end of the world, but it was very, very, very good. And then the second one was actually a recording of a play, and it was the National Theatre's Importance of Being Earnest. And I do know this play vaguely, like it's I've read it, I think, and I've watched, like, I think there was a version that came out during COVID that we could watch, so I watched that, but I wasn't like totally tuned into it. It's not like a show that I could quote or even reference well, I think, but I feel like now I can. I really enjoyed this, I think. There was one character that I just did not like at all, and I don't know if it was the actor or the director's choice in terms of how to play that character, but I just found it annoying, to be honest. But generally, it was very funny. The costumes were great, fantastic. It was pretty easy to follow. Like, it was just, yeah, a good experience. On to music, I've just got one song, and it's by my friend who's released a song. I love supporting friends. It's called Moving On, and it's by Amanda Thon. So if you want to go and support my friend, even if it's folky, so like, I'm not a huge folk music kind of person. Like, it's not a genre I would ever really choose to listen to, but even if you could just play once to support her, I would really appreciate that. Moving On, Amanda Thorne. Then I've got 3 food things. Number 1 is I had a regular Twix bar, which I've not had in I cannot tell you how long. One of my co-workers just got it for me really randomly, and I bit into it and I was like, wow, I forgot how good and how much I love Twix. And then the next 2 I went to Holland, so they are Dutch things. Number 1 is Dua Pinotti, of course, which is like Nutella but better. Well, better might not be the right word. Different, but as good. And of course, stroopwafels, which are the waffles, I think. I don't know how else to describe it. Then for fashion, we've just got one, and it's one that I've worn so much. I did the London Winter Run in February, which I think you probably know about because I was filming the whole process of running and training and everything. And because I fundraised certain amounts, I got clothes and other things from them. A lot of it I haven't opened yet. I told myself I wasn't allowed to wear any of it until I finished the run, but literally the day after I finished the run, actually I've just realised I've got 2 fashiony things, but the day after the run I decided to wear the sweatshirt. I don't really know generally how to wear sweatshirts, but I have been living in this. And again, it's also not really a colour, I mean, it's not a colour I wouldn't pick because it's still within that greeny blue range, but it's just a bit more grey than I would normally go for, but I just love it so much, and it's such nice quality. It's really good quality. So that's number 1, and then number 2, I've just remembered. My mum got me a top that's like all about running. I'll put in a picture as I'm talking because I don't have it on me. And I wore that a couple of times too, and it made me very happy. And then for travel, I've got 2. I've got EasyJet, which I flew with to go to Holland, and it just feels like that slight step up from Ryanair, and I've only flown Ryanair recently, so it just felt like a little bit better. And then number 2 is just Holland, the country, the place. It's home, and I love it very much, and whenever I go there, it will end up in my favourites. And then just to finish off, my song of the month is Moving On by Amanda Fon. Once again, even if you don't want to listen to folk, just put it on quiet, but still have it playing just once, because I'd love to give her support and love and recognition. And you never know, you may actually like it. I do. My hair is coming loose. So yeah, that's everything that happened in February. Let me know what you've enjoyed, or if you've read or seen or done any of these things, and I will see you very shortly in another video. Bye!